So good afternoon, still technically noon, not yet. All right, so the time is now 5:17 p.m. and I call the meeting to order November 14, 2023 for DC Public Charter School. Welcome to our board meeting. My name is Patrick and I'm the board chair. Our members today are, I see Pam, I see Michaela, I see Colette, I see Ahmad, I see Terry, I see Tamika, I see Lisa, I see Chevy, I see Hadley. Did I miss anybody?
Forget Pam.
Yep, I think I said Pam first. All right, so we have a quorum, so we can start our meeting. All right, Laura, you want to, or can somebody display the agenda really quick? The first item is our notes.
Here, are you able to put that up?
Yeah, I can bring it up. All right, I will share my screen really quick. Oops. All right, can everyone see?
Yes.
Yes. All right, thanks. So if we can look, take a few minutes to look at June and September minutes. We'll just take about 2 to 3 minutes to do that. And everyone should have it in their emails.
Last two.
Yeah, remember there was some changes that needed to be made to the June one. They weren't 100% correct. So thought was to make those corrections and then we would come back and approve them here.
I can make a motion to approve the June minutes, if that's what you would like, Patrick.
All right, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. Let me, I'm gonna have to stop sharing so I can see everybody that's on the, to call the roll to vote. So let me just start with Pam. I can't hear you, Pam, if you're muted. Okay, Pam's an aye. Michaela?
Aye.
Colette?
Aye.
Ahmad?
Aye.
Terry?
Aye.
Lisa?
Aye.
Emily? Tamika?
Aye.
Chevy?
Aye.
Hadley? Dan?
Aye.
And Patrick's aye. And let me go to Emily and Hadley. If you're speaking, you're both on mute. Okay.
Aye.
All right. The ayes have it. The motion is carried. So the June minutes are approved. We'll go to September now. Could I have a motion to approve the September?
So moved.
All right. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Pam. I guess that's an aye.
Aye. Aye.
Michaela?
Aye.
Colette?
Aye.
Ahmad? Ahmad? Oh, I got you. Terry,
Aye.
Lisa,
Aye.
Emily,
Aye.
Tamika,
Aye.
Chevy,
Aye.
Hadley, Dan,
Aye.
Patrick, aye. The motion is carried. The minutes are approved. Okay, next item, Dan, I will turn it over to you for finance updates.
So I think before we do that, I was going to have Vanessa give one quick plug really quickly for an event that we're going to have later this month, and then we'll turn it over to Dan.
Okay, thanks, Laura.
Thanks, Patrick, for letting me jump in. So I wanted to give you all a heads up, and I will follow up after this meeting with the official email invitation about an event that the development committee is putting together on November 30th as a fundraiser for Change Summer. And Hadley is very generously hosting at her house. So to give you a little context, Change Summer is a nonprofit that provides opportunities for students to attend summer camp who wouldn't otherwise have that opportunity. We've known the organization for years and are excited about the possibilities of being able to send a group, even if it's a small group of our students, to be able to go to summer camp, because we know that it aligns with our goals of creating more enriching experiences for our students and the ways in which it can really help build their confidence and independence over time. But at the same time, we don't take lightly that this is a financial obligation to do so. However, earlier this year, we had a donor approach us who wants to make a significant contribution to be able to support sending a group of students to summer camp above and beyond her typical donation to DC Prep, which is really exciting. And so the development committee talked, and we decided that this was a good opportunity to bring together some other folks who might be interested in contributing and being able to sort of fill the gap, so we can send at least 25 students this summer and potentially in future years. And so we will have this event November 30th. We're going to have the CEO of Change Summer there to talk about the organization and the potential partnership that we're concocting. And I hope you can join. We are trying to be thoughtful, as I mentioned, about inviting people who might not give in other ways or who we want to strengthen the relationship with. And we think there's a good opportunity that includes the holiday elves who are always so generous at holiday time. And we're hoping that this is going to be another way to strengthen that relationship as well.
How much are we targeting to raise?
About 20,000.
Well, all I can do is smile and say thank you. That's exciting. It's an awesome opportunity. So thank you so much.
Okay, over to Dan.
Great. We have two topics to talk about. I think neither will probably take that much time, so we should be right on schedule for the agenda. The first is our annual fiscal audit. As a reminder to everybody, each year we hire an outside auditor to look at all of our financial statements and our finances to ensure that we're operating in a prudent manner and in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. We have an audit committee, which is made up of the members of our finance and real estate committee and chaired by Dan Fine. Thank you, Dan, who reviews the audit every year. So at our meeting not that long ago, we received our draft audit. The audit committee reviewed it and recommended that the full board accept the findings of that audit. You have the audit draft in your inbox, but the high-level message is that the audit was clean. There's no material adjustments, no findings. In general, our performance financially was pretty similar to what we had budgeted. There were some, expected not unusual, expected changes in our finances. Things like ESSER funds were, expected to be high and were. We have some agreements related to our financing, which are new or currently changing. But I'll turn it to any member of the audit committee if they want to share any other context or comments before we open it to the full board for any questions, and then to hopefully approve and accept the audit.
We're in good shape. Numbers look good.
Thanks, Terry. Any other questions or comments from anybody?
No, I read it. I mean, the auditors obviously said that we were looking good, that they found that, that our books were good, that there's a lot of integrity in our processes and everything. So, yeah.
Okay. So if there's no other questions, I think we typically vote on accepting the audit.
Okay, could I have a motion to accept the audit?
So moved.
Second.
And this is the recommendation of Ahmad's Finance Committee that I would propose that we accept. Thank you.
Second.
Okay, Pam?
Concur.
Aye for Patrick. Michaela?
Aye.
Let?
Aye.
Maud?
Aye.
Terry?
Aye.
Lisa?
Aye. Sorry.
Hadley?
Aye.
Emily?
Aye.
Tamika?
Aye.
Chevy?
Aye.
Dan?
Aye.
Ayes have it. The motion is carried. Board accepts the audit.
Thank you, everyone. The second item we have is an updated document that you saw about a year ago. It's a reimbursement resolution that this board passed a year ago. The idea of the resolution is that we may and are in fact likely to pursue tax-exempt financing for phase 2 construction at Wilkinson and for the refinancing of the V Street property. And one of the characteristics of tax-exempt financing is this reimbursement resolution where the board authorizes the reimbursement of expenses through the issuance of the bonds. You're not at this time authorizing us to enter into a financing agreement. You're not authorizing us to spend any money, but you are authorizing us to, if we do ultimately use tax-exempt funds, we can reimburse for expenses that are currently happening related to phase 2, for example, the architecture work. The reason we're bringing to you again after another year is that we're changing the amount on the reimbursement resolution. The first time we brought it to you, it was just for Wilkinson phase 2, so it was a lower amount. Now we're planning to use tax-exempt financing for both Wilkinson phase 2 and for the V Street refinancing. So the new total amount is $45 million. The Finance and Real Estate Committee also reviewed this and also recommended that the board approve this resolution. So again, I'll open it either for any comments from the committee or for any questions from the rest of the board.
Move approval.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, Pam?
Aye.
Patrickson, aye. Michaela?
Aye.
Let?
Aye.
Maud?
Aye.
Terry?
Aye.
Lisa?
Aye.
Hadley?
Aye.
Emily?
Aye.
Mika?
Aye.
Chevy?
Aye.
Dan?
Aye.
Ayes have it. The motion carried. The motion is approved.
All right, thanks everybody. That's all for me.
All right, thanks, Dan. Next item on the agenda will be schools update from Cassie.
Good evening, everyone. It's nice to see you all. We just ended our first quarter, and I want to share back some of the highlights from our 6 schools. An important metric for us, as you all know, is attendance, and we're encouraged to see that our attendance rates at every campus is stronger than last year. It really matters. Research suggests strong attendance is one of the top predictors of whether a student will eventually graduate from high school. We've been working on strong attendance this year by doing a lot of family communication, a lot of student incentives, a lot of planning with individual students and homerooms of students for how to have strong attendance and why, and tons of incentives, as well as like individual planning with families for whom attendance is a challenge. And we're really proud and feeling hopeful and optimistic about student attendance. At the end of each quarter, we also administer academic assessments at different grade bands. These assessments help us to evaluate whether our students are on track to achieve their learning goals for the year and help us determine whether or not our instructional strategies and our curriculum and our programming is working. As you all saw in the board dashboard that we sent out, as all of our campuses saw improvements in math results relative to the first testing cycle a year ago. Our ELA results are more mixed. They're similar to where we were a year ago. We have some bright spots. We have some concerning grade levels that we're really focused on. In order to strengthen our math and ELA results between now and throughout Q2 until our next round of benchmark assessments, we're very focused on looking at student work that is aligned to the grade level standards. So for example, we are having collaborative planning meetings with teachers on every team to really look at what's coming up that's aligned to grade level work and rigor. What should student work look like? What does our kids' work look like? How do we need to adjust small groups for tomorrow? Which adult is doing what to drive different kinds of instruction and support for students? In September, I also spoke with you about one of our major priorities for the year that's a part of our school plan, particularly how we are focused on strengthening our inclusion model by clarifying roles and responsibilities of the general education teacher, the special education inclusion teacher, the academic intervention fellows who are similar to like paraprofessionals and work as one-on-ones with students. And while we still do have room to keep improving how the entire kind of teaching team and ecosystem is operating inside of a classroom to support every single kid and their individual needs, we are making good traction on this priority. As a way of measuring that, we look at student outcome data, classroom observations, and also one of the questions on our staff survey indicates that greater than 80% of our instructional staff agree or strongly agree that they are clear on their responsibilities. So that is exciting to see that people are clear, and that is empowering to then be able to build on how we want them to collaborate and work together. More broadly, our staff survey results are similar to the first quarter of last school year. That's encouraging given that 3 of our campuses have a first-year principal in them. And the same is true for our family survey results. Our feedback from families is historically very positive. More than 90% of families continue to agree or strongly agree with all of the questions we pose them about how they're appreciating our schools right now. At the end of the quarter, every principal works with our academic team to create a school-specific priority plan for the next quarter to respond to their campus data. And we spend the next quarter really working those plans and trying to get really focused on our priorities. So I look forward to updating you on the progress of those campus priorities at our next board meeting in February. And I'm also happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, I have one question, having looked at the comparison on the ANET scores, and just given how, I mean, I know we're improving on a lot of them, which is good when you compare year over year, but like comparing it to the actual target, are they actual meaningful targets that do anything when we're 20 percentage points off on almost all of them? I guess, how do you use that as a tool to really judge or is it realistic? I guess I'm just trying, it was just so stark how far away we were. Is that actually, is it relevant?
Yeah, tell me if this answers the question. ANET, who writes the assessments and they're administered nationally, a lot of schools use their assessment package and tools. They are aligned with an assessment like PARC, which we're very held accountable to and really strive towards, and very much aligned to grade level standards. And when they do their own internal analysis, they sort of have an internal benchmark that is, if your students are scoring somewhere in the 60 to 65% range, that is equivalent to being proficient or advanced on PARC. So we're kind of always, I know that sounds weird that it's not 100%, but we're kind of always striving to that 60, 65, because that tells us if kids are scoring there, it means that they are going to likely be proficient on grade level work as indicated by the PARC assessment. Does that help answer your question? It's we're still far off, but we are not, in some ways, we are not actually striving towards 100%. We are, but a more realistic measure is if we can get the majority of our kids to score in the 60s.
Right. I guess what I was just looking at in the file that was sent, that like for our A1 ELA performance, we're sort of at 35% and the goal is 55%. And
Yeah.
so for 4 of the 6 schools were red, so it means we're not on track. So I guess I was just, since it was so consistent, I guess I was trying to say, is this 55% goal a realistic goal? Like, is that something that you say, wow, we really did poorly this year because that was our goal?
Yeah.
Because if you look at that, it's like, wow, we really swung and missed. But at the same time, we did better than last year. So I was just trying to say, like, is that goal meaningful?
Yeah.
Like, should we be really upset how far away we are? Or
Yeah,
we never thought we could get there?
I think we think about it as both and. We are very motivated to achieve higher results with kids, and we believe that 55% is possible. The other thing I think about is that you're looking right now at an average. So for example, when you look at EMC, which was 47%, that's 4th through 8th grade. If you looked at our 7th and 8th grade scores, the breakdown, I don't know it off the top of my head, but it's higher. And then the 4th and 5th grade is lower. And so when you look, not always, but generally, we also see that trajectory, which is really valuable. So for example, our Benning Middle School, our 7th and 8th graders are scoring much higher, but the average is looking lower. So it is discouraging that we are still not getting higher outcomes for kids. And we feel very motivated and feel like the 55% goal should be realistic if we keep working our priorities of like knowing which kids need which help and how to keep pushing both like intervention and grade level work.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
The other thing that has been the case, at least recently with ANET, is that A1 is the first of 4 assessments. And, if you look at our results last year, in most campuses, our A1 results were our lowest, right? We're still getting to know our new students, and Cassie's team is kind of in looking at A1, kind of adjusting what should we do for A2, A3, A4. And so you might see that sort of number trend higher towards some of those goals later in the year on an average basis.
Got it. Thank you.
I have a follow-up question. So do we know which numbers, when we say like the 40 or 50 or 60% is our goal, does that correlate to a 4 on the PARC, or does that correlate to a 3 on the PARC?
ANET will not say this publicly. So it's more of like they've done their own internal analysis. They in the past have said like if you're hitting 60, 65% on ANET, you're likely to be a 4 on PARC, a 4 or higher on PARC.
Okay. And then the other question, and correct me if I'm wrong, but because a lot of our 4th graders, a significant portion don't come from our school, that tends to be our kind of lower grade. So that can throw the average numbers off because we haven't had those students in our system and pipeline.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I mean, we're accepting new students through sixth grade. Sixth grade, it's often a pretty small number, but for sure, fourth grade and fifth grade end up being kind of expansion years. But Kate, preschool through third, we're accepting new students. And so that is definitely true. Historically, the only grades we're not accepting new students are in seventh and eighth. And, I think part of what we're seeing in our data, and I know there have been national trends that math is having a harder comeback post-pandemic. We're seeing our math results have a stronger comeback than our literacy. And so we're really focused on how are we helping kids really make up for the deficits that came out of the pandemic, especially in literacy.
Cassie, I have just a follow-on question from Patrick, and that is in terms of the overall data, do we have a sense of, for those children who are with us in elementary, those who've been with us longitudinally the longest, what is the difference in that impact overall in the scores? I mean, I don't know how to say it but what is the difference? I mean, I know it's something we've talked about for years, but I wonder, have we ever, kind of quantified that to see, how are the children who've been with us the longest fare versus those who come in at different, at different times?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I may ask Dan also to chime in. We definitely have looked at that really closely in the past. I can remember a year where we were like, let's really study this. I don't know that we've done it in a super detailed way recently. We do see that our older students perform better. That for sure we have seen over time and again. I do believe when we have kind of studied the kids who start with us in preschool or pre-K or kinder and stay with us through eighth grade, that their results are stronger, but I don't know that I could say it like definitively or that we've done that kind of study really recently.
I say it only because I think it is a story that we could leverage for communications about recruitment and, and also retention of our population.
Cassie, I was struck by the strength of the math PARCC scores and the rate of improvement. And I was curious because I think that's where most schools took the biggest hit during the pandemic. And do you think our math scores are improving as much as they are because of something special we're doing, or is part of it that's where we took the hit and it's logical that we're going to come back now that they're getting face-to-face, teaching?
Yeah, I think it's probably a combination of both. Our teaching force has changed a lot over that same period of time. So I think if you were to look at kind of the experience of our staff and the longevity of our staff pre-COVID, it was higher. We have a higher percentage now of newer teachers. And so we've also really been very focused on our programming and the resources that we provide and the development that we provide for our math teachers. So for example, one of our initiatives this year and last year was to provide like 3 sets of math materials for the math instructional block that aligns with the grade level standards that are all driving to the same outcome, but have different access points based on where kids are coming from and based on their foundational gaps. We've also made sure we've been very focused on what we call our intervention time, so that every kid every day has a 30 to 45 minute block that's just focused on foundational or prerequisite skills. We're also doing for our algebra course, we are doing like an intensified algebra course. So they're still hitting algebra and the rigor of algebra, but we're using a program and curriculum that has more, they call it co-requisite or prerequisite skills that the teachers can teach that are 6th and 7th grade skills that support the algebra. So I think that's kind of program curricular and teacher development. We're just really focused on helping the math teachers spend time in teams every week talking about what does it look like to solve at this grade level conceptually what should student work look like, and really driving kind of like data-driven practices. So I think it is both intentional stuff, and we had a lot of room. We could only go up from where we were.
Yep. Thank you.
I'll just add to, from a parent's perspective, I know we got a lot of our kids got into Banneker last year, which is great, but I only think 3 tested out of Algebra 1. So it gave me a little bit of a pause, because I would have thought that we would have had more tests out of Algebra 1 and stuff. So I think it's something that and I'm glad that we are kind of relooking at that curriculum and stuff, because I know they've done well there and stuff, but you know, they're going to pre-screen them there, and then they're going to determine whether they get to skip Algebra 1, but the majority of our kids are taking Algebra 1 over again and stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, that I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but the algebra ANET 1 that our kids took last year, I think this year the kids like doubled the scores. It was significantly higher. So we made a lot of, you know, it's another one of those, like, we had decided to do this Algebra for All right around COVID. We stuck with it. And like any new initiative, it's taken us time to figure out what are the supports that are needed for it to go well. So I appreciate that you raised that, because I think that was a real sadness from last year, was that we didn't feel like we had we had done the Algebra for All, but that didn't mean that the kids mastered the algebra content. But we're feeling like we're on a much better trajectory this year with all of the 8th graders across BMC and EMC.
Awesome, thanks. The other question I had was a little bit just, if you could talk a little bit, I think the board will be interested in kind of the new science curriculum. One of the things we didn't talk about a lot, we looked at math and English scores for our part, but we didn't talk too much about science. And then when I got my son's science grades back this year, they were below average, but he was in the 99th percentile being below average, which says to me that none of the kids across the city or DC Prep are where they need to be, right? Because despite the fact that he had a low score, it was still on the higher end. Again, as a parent, when I watch him do his science homework now, the new curriculum and the new software that we're using, to me, is amazing. So I'll just give you guys an example. Like, they'll do a science homework and it'll, you know, it's a software, and they'll go, okay, if I eat a donut, and then it shows that the glucose level went up. So, you know, the problem will be like, how do you lower a person's glucose level? And they can go, okay, well, if I exercise for 30 minutes, then they'll show it. So it's just very interactive. And I think it's going to be very effective and stuff. So.
Yeah, it's wonderful. So we invested in a new next generation science standards aligned curriculum called Amplify. Our science department last spring helped select it, and it's awesome. It's very phenomena based. The units drive towards lots of really just wonderful experiential learning. It is our very first year doing it. And our science department is a small but mighty team. We have some really awesome science teachers that are super excited about it, but it is their first time teaching a whole new curriculum. So I only believe it's going to get better and better, but it is a really solid foundation that we're really excited about.
Thanks. Any more questions for Cassie? All right. If not, we will turn it over to Laura for our Family Experience Task Force.
Thanks, Cassie. Okay, I am excited to update you on the Family Experience Task Force. I told you in September about the work that we'd been doing to try to learn more from our families about what brings them to DC Prep, what's working at DC Prep, and what they want us to focus on going forward. And so in September, we invited all of our families to participate in a survey where we asked just like some basic questions about, why did you choose us? By and large, it won't surprise you that families said strong academic results. When we said, you know, what's going well now, they said that the two things that they cited as being most happy with were academic results and the communication that they receive from their teacher and their child's school. We asked, okay, what would you want us to focus on over the next few years in order to have the biggest impact on your child's experience? Families said academics, and they talked about course diversity. And then when we asked families, okay, getting, you know, here's the space for open response versus, you know, select one of these options. We said, what would you most want to see be different in 2 years? And there, families gave us like a range of different answers. Some of the answers were really around things that we would be able to like try and go and tackle tomorrow. And some were things that a number wrote in things related to either course diversity or extracurriculars. A lot was around languages, offering a foreign language. Most people who talked about language talked about Spanish, but some talked about like coding or other types of languages. And then some talked about things that were related to getting to and from school, right? So that's what we saw in the survey. We then said, okay, surveys are helpful, but they only tell you so much. So we really want to invite families to come in and talk with us. And so we had eight focus groups over the course of a few weeks. And we invited families to come in and just share more detail around what they really had on their mind. And so what they told us was that there were lots of things that were working. In general, families said they feel confident that DC Prep will give their child the academic preparation that they need. They're generally happy with communication from the school, that when they raise concerns, we're quick to respond to them, and that their children have by and large had really great teachers who are responsive, hardworking, and really, really care about their child and whether their child is succeeding in school. And so all of those things were very encouraging. They also gave us lots of ideas on what we should focus on in order to provide an even stronger school experience to their children. They talked about the impact of having a particularly strong teacher. And they talked about some of the things that they really value when they think about the best teachers that their children have had. And so those are really teachers who go the extra mile to build a strong relationship with their child, really make sure that they're communicating back to the parent about what they observe with the child. And so that tells the parent that they know that the child feels is known and really cared about, that they have rigorous instruction and where kids come back home excited about whatever they're learning in school, and that we are doing a good job of creating the right set of incentives for students to be particularly excited about attendance and about like coming to school on time, et cetera. So those were some of the things that families talked about as really shaping their experience of the school and their child's general happiness within the school day. And so families talked about how important that was with for us to like really hold on to teachers for a long time, because having that sense of relationship and history was really valuable. Families also talked about a range of different things that they wanted for their children. But when you really start to like probe and understand, okay, like why is this important? What families talked a lot about was horizon broadening experiences, right? So ways for their child to feel a deeper understanding of the world outside. And that could be from like as small as this was the thing that we're studying in class today, and like it got my child to come home and be like, you know, excited and talk to me about what they were learning about, to there was a classroom speaker, to I want my child to have access to, you know, a parent said, I would like my child just to like have exposure to like what ASL would be like. They don't even need to learn ASL, but like just to kind of get some exposure to understand that there's different things to be excited about that you could then go on to pursue, right? And so the parents gave a number of examples of those, you know, that could be as big as adding new courses to the day, to as small as, you know, what are the special events and speakers that you bring in to make sure that children are just like getting a bigger sense of like what's out there. And so that was something that we've like really taken to heart, because there are ways of thinking about doing that aligns really well with like our college prep mission, and thinking about how do we get students like excited and curious about like the world beyond school. There were a couple of other themes that that we heard from families. I could go on and on about like, you know, different things that we took away from those conversations. But I know that you all also had an opportunity to look at the summary I sent out. And so why don't I pause and see if you had any reactions to anything that you read, or anything that I shared, or anything that I didn't speak to. I'd be happy to answer questions.
Laura, what would you think your like top 2 priorities would be from the feedback? I know there's a lot to work on, but what are you thinking about your top 2 priorities to spend your energy to get the most bang for the buck?
Yeah. I take very seriously the when families gave us examples of these are the classrooms that have really worked for my child, right? Hearing them describe what are the teacher moves that really make a difference. And almost universally, when families were describing some of the teachers that they've had the best experience with, they're teachers who've been with us for a long time, right? And so it really reinforces the fact that you know, teaching is complex, and so the longer people are with us, the better positioned they are to like be able to have the brain space to be able to think about, how am I really building the strong relationship with students? How am I communicating back with families while also trying to have a rigorous and joyful classroom? And so I think it's a good push to all of us to think about like, how are we supporting and retaining teachers for a long time, and really helping teachers hear what are the things that are most important when engaging students and families. Because we had a number of staff members, teachers who came and supported with the family listening sessions. And then also there, I shared back like all of the feedback that we transcribed. And when our teachers who are in the task force were like reading through it, it was really powerful to hear them reflect on, oh, it's so helpful when families say that this is really important to them. Like it just drives home the point in a different way that is maybe more powerful than me saying like, it's really important that we do X, you know, like family voices really matter. So I would say like it's supporting teachers, retaining them for a long time is one big priority. The other big priority that I was really struck by was around this, like, how do we broaden students' horizons? And there were lots of ways in which the things that families were describing as important and powerful just fit really well with the why behind projects. You know, we've been talking about projects for a number of years, and when you look at what projects have the potential to offer and what families are saying they're looking for, it feels like one of the very best ways that we can like marry those two and keep in mind the first point, which was, you know, how do we keep teachers for a long time, right? And like, how do we make projects feel integrated within the course experience versus like cramming in more things into the day? How do we make that feel integrated? So those were I would say the two big takeaways that I had from these family sessions.
Laura, I was struck by the point about Spanish and language, and I take your point about projects helping to expand horizons, and I think that that's very encouraging. But have we seriously looked at offering one language like Spanish? And if so, where are we on that?
It has been something that we have that was something that we talked about even within the original org evolution discussions, and we said we wanted to push off like thinking about adding in more explicit course diversity in terms of like foreign languages. I would say it's still something that I think is important for us to reflect on, and it's hard, right? It's hard for a number of reasons, because it would require that we either think differently about we would need to add staff, which has a budget implication, and then we would need to think about like where it fits within the day. I think it's still something that we should continue to explore whether we can do it and how to do it. I would love to put it like within the 5-year plan, but I don't think it's the number one thing that we would be able to. I don't think it's the number one way for us to be able to offer more value to families in like the next 3 years.
Okay, thank you.
Is after school a possibility for Spanish?
I appreciate the creative thinking, Terry. And the thing that I would say, yes, though, we would either need to find a staff member who is able to offer that, and so maybe we do have staff members who would be interested in running that type of an after school activity, or we would need to contract for that. We tried to do that a number of years ago. Back when I was the chief talent officer, we tried to offer Spanish in the aftercare program, and it's hard. It's hard sometimes when you're relying on outside providers, right? Because you have to, you are not the one, we would not be the ones who would be like training and supporting those folks to come in and do the work. You're reliant on somebody else to have strong classroom management, to make sure that they show up every day. Those are the things that are that make it complicated.
So, and I'll leave this only because it's just a thought for maybe it's in the 7-year plan, but as you've worked the relationships, for example, with the pre-law students at Catholic, perhaps there are, folks who are studying languages at our at where we have partnerships, where it would be a value add, where they would get some teaching experience or some exposure. You'd have that relationship with that or with the university, and therefore, there might be a win-win. I totally heard it's hard, and I totally heard still there would need to be some responsibility from the DC prep perspective because there are kids, et cetera. But you've probably already thought about it, but I just saw that the engagement at the mock interviews and the excitement there. And I thought it might be something that we could explore later on.
Yeah, I think what I hope you all know is that there's lots of creative ways to tackle problems. And I don't think, and I think all of us are willing to sign up for like tackling challenging things. I think the question is what is most important for us to solve first, And how do we make sure that we are disciplined enough about making enough time and space for the things that are most important, that we can then do them really well. And so my belief is that we could do Spanish, right? We could do it. We could, I believe we could do it really well. But if we did it, then we would not be doing many other things. And so that's why I would say, when I think about what is most going to help create the kind of experience that I think our families are naming, my strong instinct is there are other things that we should do first, and we should recognize that, like, Spanish, Spanish is a valuable and important, like, thing to offer, but I don't think that we can do it well first, if we want to do the other things that that we believe we should be doing to add value.
Received.
Yeah, I would agree with you, Laura, and I think we should do some more thinking about it. I just think that given who our students are, they're our customer, and I think, like, just those fundamental basic grammar and English skills, particularly at the lower level, I don't know if that would pull away from that and stuff. So maybe consider maybe at the upper levels, maybe 7th and 8th grade, and maybe something like that. But I know we still have a lot to think about, but that was my only concern was, and don't have the experience, that the teachers have, but my concern was exactly what you said. I wonder if we introduce that curriculum, will it pull away from some fundamental skills that I think our kids just need, and it just needs to be reinforced, right? So that's what my big concern would be, particularly like if you started at like the earlier grades, where I don't think a lot of our kids are getting the reinforcement of what they really need to be successful. And I wonder if, like, trying to learn another language and trying to learn Spanish at the same time would take away from them learning the foundational English skills and stuff. And I see Chevy has his hand up, so I'm going to Chevy.
Yeah, so I'm going to kind of go against the grain here a little bit. And I think that there may be an opportunity to just consider a pilot at some point. So we're preparing, we're receiving, in my organization, we receive the benefit of the great work of DC Prep. And I think there's research out there that talks about the benefit of learning more than one language, or being proficient in more than one language, especially at an earlier age. The world is a more global world. It's a more connected world. And so I think this is also something that we would need to consider, not to the degree where it destabilizes the priorities, as Laura is rightly saying, but I guess I'm just saying, Patrick, with regard to your comment, I'm not sure that it's an either or, right? So I think there may be a pilot way to do this and understand what we're contributing to, and we can look at the research, right, and see what it says there. One of the other things is we're a huge country geographically, but one of the only ones, we have this monolingual heritage, sort of, right? And that does not well suit, I think, this newest generation and how in being competitive on a global basis.
Thanks, Chevy. I think Lisa and then Emily.
I can't work my phone. Well, I agree with what everyone has said, and I really appreciate what Chevy just said as well. And actually, I was lowering my hand because I was like, maybe I'll just keep this to myself. But I was going to say, just even reflecting on the mock interviews for the 8th graders. At the end of the day, when we reflect upon kind of the mission of DC Prep and really the outcome that we want for our students. We want them to go to high performing high schools and ultimately matriculate into college and, shine bright. And, the bottom line is, if we are able to continue to infuse in the curriculum and the supports to well position our students so that they can go to high performing high schools, I mean, all those high performing high schools are going to require a language, you know, starting freshman year. So they won't lose out from that opportunity. And then of course, some of these high performing high schools as well will offer up opportunities for them to travel, you know, over spring break and things of that nature. So I think, I mean, all the points have been really excellent on both ends. And I think ultimately, you know, the decision will be, how do we continue to contribute to that bottom line of positioning our 8th graders so well that, you know, they can continue to shine bright and then hopefully come back and work at DC Prep as well.
Thanks. And as a
I
ninth
like how
grade-
you're connecting it back to like working at DC Prep. Yes, yes.
One of the goals.
Yeah, and I'll say is a ninth grader at Banneker, and she's in Latin. So all of the ninth graders there take Latin, and then they can choose a follow-on. And I cannot help her at all with that. I'm like, you're on your own with that homework. Emily.
I wanted to come back to the kind of family feedback about wanting their kids to love coming to school and kind of some of the teacher moves that enable that. And I just wanted to throw out an idea that I feel like, at least when I was more involved on a daily basis, we didn't spend as much time brainstorming about, where I have been in the conversations about foreign language before. I just feel like, you know, maybe there are creative ways, and I know there will be complications, but maybe there are creative ways to better draw on the strengths of our families. Because I do, to your point, Laura, I think there's something different about hearing from a parent about some of the really like tactical things that could help a teacher than from, you know, the person who comes and observes them regularly. And I don't know if there's a way over time, you know, to have a advisory group of parents who've been at DC Prep a while, and there might be 1 or 2 or 3 in a class. And when you're a new teacher to DC Prep, or maybe you're, you know, you've gotten your feet in the ground, you're in your 2nd or 3rd year, you have like 1 or 2 parents who are resources for you, who've been at DC Prep and are able to kind of give you a little bit of advice. You know, like maybe you meet, I don't know, once a month, and you just kind of hear a little bit from their perspective how things are going. Or maybe they come observe for like, I don't know, an hour and just give you their thoughts, or hear what, you know, share what they're hearing from their student. Like, it just seems like there's could be more there that might really resonate with the teacher in a different way. And really draw on some of the expertise that our families have learned from kind of really seeing what works for their kids, and with our great teachers.
I really value that point. We've tried to do that in like small ways, right? So we will typically have parents who come back for like this year we tried to bring in family voices to AO kickoff. So when we bring all of our staff together on the first day back, we had a video with parents who were talking about like what they really value about DC Prep. We had a parent, her sons and one of our teachers have like a panel discussion talking about like, you know, how this teacher has really built strong family partnerships. And I think there are just things that like land differently. That's like why we always bring back alumni as well, because like hearing alumni who are now in college or beyond reflect on like, these were the things that I really took away from, you know, great teachers at DC Prep, helps, I think, just land the why behind some of what we do in a very different way. And so I think we've seen that work, and we should think more about how we can further build on those moments. So thanks for that idea. I'm going to suggest we keep moving. This will not be the last time that we talk about the feedback that we get from families, because we're going to try and use the feedback from families to think about how we shape what we do next. So we will continue to talk about this topic. But now I'll turn it over to Alicia to talk about safety.
Hi, good evening. I'm really excited to talk to you about safety, especially because as we had this discussion, I see a lot of connected threads between our school, our plan, our academic plan, our school teams, and our families' voices. So I'm excited to end the evening on a thrilling topic of safety. Kira, can you present the slides, please? Thank you. Okay, so we're going to talk a little about safety at DC Prep. I want to share our philosophy, the preventative measures and approaches that we take, and then I'll be able to end with some questions that you all may have. To kick us off, our philosophy on safety is listed here. It's really important that we know that safety is really important and it's paramount for all of our stakeholders to feel and to be safe in our buildings in order for our students to do their best work and to learn and to grow. And in order for our staff to also do their best work, we need to make sure that everyone has a really strong sense of physical safety. We do know that safety is, there are components of safety, emotional safety, other aspects of safety, but this presentation is focused primarily on our philosophy and our approach to ensuring that our students, staff, and families are physically safe on our campuses. We do a lot of work to ensure that we have built strong protocols and preventative measures that will keep our stakeholders safe in the event of both internal threats that could arise and happen in our building, as well as external threats to safety. And so on this slide, I've listed just a few of those the internal and external threats that we really try to plan thoughtfully for and ensure that we have strong preventative measures in place. But we, as you'll see, we continue to work really hard to evolve those measures as needed in the event that is necessary. We do have a really strong belief that one of the greatest levers that we have to ensure safety of everyone in our community are the strong relationships that we build, cultivate, and foster. These are relationships amongst staff, staff to student, student to student, student to family. It's very important that building strong relationships allows us to get to know our community, and it allows us to learn about any kind of potential safety risk or threats. We learn about it early so that we can intervene or prevent things from escalating. So strong relationships is a thread that you're going to see tonight that we really lean on in order to keep our stakeholders and our community safe. Now I'm going to talk through some of the kind of more technical preventative measures that we use to keep our community safe. And I'm going to begin with our protocols and our post that we use to ensure that there is strong supervision and for all of our students. So we do have security guards at all of our campuses, and that their hours on site from 6:30 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. That allows them to, they have different post orders. They're constantly walking the buildings to be looking for and to try to ensure that there are no safety issues, both in the building and outside around our buildings. We supplement that as well with our staff during arrival and dismissal. We use our staff, our teachers, and our operations team to ensure that they have duty posts at arrival and dismissal inside and outside of the building to support with a safe and smooth and efficient dismissal and arrival process. We have visitor protocols that our operations team and our school leaders, we enforce, we train, we practice with them to ensure that only visitors who are supposed to be in our building are in our building, as well as to ensure we have strong documentation of who is in our building at any given time. We have detailed protocols for the event of emergency. We train and we practice with our staff and our students so that in the event of an emergency, it's not the first time that folks have ever experienced, how to evacuate or how to lock down if needed. And then we have a really strong emergency alert system that we're able to notify stakeholders through text, robocall, email. In the event of emergency, we can get communication out really quickly to be able to respond appropriately. Connected to that, we are always training our staff, our students, and we conduct drills regularly to ensure that everyone knows what to do. I just want to emphasize here that our training is not just the emergency training, how to evacuate or how to lock down, but we try to do a lot of proactive training as well on best practices for de-escalation, best practices for building strong relationships, best practices for ensuring that in the event of a safety incident, we know exactly what to do. So our training this is not an exhaustive list. These are examples of training and drills that we conduct regularly so that everyone knows exactly what to do. We have a really amazing, I think Cassie referred to the science team as tiny but mighty or small but mighty. We have a very similar facilities team where there's a really talented group of building engineers who work really hard to keep our buildings well maintained and operational so that our buildings and the physical facade of our buildings are a very helpful component to prevent any safety issues. That facilities team works to ensure that our cameras remain operational and clear and easy to operate. They also do a lot of preventative maintenance, regular inspections that they coordinate with outside vendors, and they do themselves as well for our most critical building systems to ensure that those are all operational. And then I think almost equally as important to relationships is our relationship and connection to building experts, security experts who can come out to conduct regular vulnerability assessments and tell us where we might need to make adjustments or enhancements to our protocols, procedures, or our structure of our buildings. And so we do that annually. We make sure that we have those security experts come out, assess our buildings, provide recommendations, and we follow their recommendations to ensure that our buildings are the most safe they can be. And then I'm going to continue this relationship thread. It's important that we have relationships inside of our buildings, but we also work really hard as a network to build relationships with city agencies and neighboring schools and businesses outside of our buildings as well. It's important because we can't control everything that happens around our buildings. And so being able to have strong relationships and partnerships where we can advocate for the needs, particularly like rival and dismissal is a major advocacy point right now. We need support from those city agencies in order to keep our stakeholders safe. And so we really work hard to cultivate and maintain those relationships and advocate for the needs of our community. And then just like there's no one size fits all way to teach students, we know that we have to continue to evaluate our safety, our preventative measures, our protocols, and we have to do that. We do that through making sure that we get we collect survey feedback and solicit a lot of feedback and input from our stakeholders in varieties of ways. Our operations team conducts listening sessions annually. We really want to make sure that we are thoughtful and we are doing everything that we can to ensure our stakeholders feel and are safe. Like I said, we do those annual vulnerability assessments conducted by external safety consultants to ensure that any recommendations that might have changed with the times that we're keeping up with, and we're able to enhance our building's safety and security, as well as maintaining relationships with other leaders in DC and outside of DC to make sure that if there are other preventative measures or approaches that folks take to safety that are working, we want to make sure that we are talking and not reinventing the wheel all the time. We want to make sure that we're sharing and learning people's best practices. So that is a synopsis, high-level synopsis of what we do to keep our buildings safe, our stakeholders safe, and the preventative measures that we take to ensure that everyone's, foundational safety needs are met so that they can come to school every day focus on learning and growing. So I will now open it up. If there are any questions, clarifying questions, probing questions, I'm happy to answer.
Can you talk, I thought that was great, thank you. You a lot of that was focused on, I guess, risks from the outside. How do you think, particularly in the middle school, about risks from other students, and how do you prevent that? And is that the responsibility of teachers, of the security guards? And how do you think about protecting your students from each other, if that's an issue?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think one of the biggest things that we do is really focus on that relationship building, to get to know our students, to get to know their strengths, issues, and who they're having conflicts or concerns with. And we intervene really early, right? So we do a lot of restorative practices. We do a lot of things to try to keep those issues from escalating. But I'll also bring in Cassie. So my team on the ops team, we work really closely with the schools team to be able to recognize it when or if those issues are happening, and what additional supports might need to be brought in. Sometimes that might be security guards or outside agencies that we partner with so that we can try to intervene, solve, and resolve the conflict before it escalates. Does that answer your question, Dan?
Yeah, it does. Thank you. I'm just curious, how much of an issue is that at the schools? How often are there disciplinary? I mean, I know we've seen, I think, suspension data, but I mean, how often is that relate to fighting, hazing, whatever you want to call it, among students?
I'll bring in Cassie to maybe speak to this a little bit more precisely.
Yeah. It's definitely more of a problem in our middle schools. And like Alicia said, so much of what we're trying to do is proactive and preventive in terms of really knowing the kid and making sure that each child has a trusted adult, that when they are having issues, they have someone they can talk to, and that a lot of our training with teachers revolves around making sure people have strong de-escalation strategies, we call it ear hustling. But for example, at recess, when you're monitoring a middle school recess, you're not just kind of there, you're actively making sure the kids are playing games and not teasing each other and not, participating in destructive behaviors that will then make them come back into the building and want to fight. We are experiencing, I think, more incidents of behavior problems, particularly in the middle schools. We are seeing things, we'll see things on some Monday mornings that result from social media activity over the weekend, and really trying to have to adjust. And Monday mornings are a new hotspot at DC Prep in the middle schools, in a way that I remember as a principal, that was always a really calm, kids come in tired. But now something happened on social media, and we are having to dive in and figure out what it was, get the kids to talk productively about it, get them to repair and make commitments to not participate in poor choices. And it's definitely a work in progress. And we have a student support coach at every school who spends a lot of time on that balance of discipline and mediation and working with the families, as well as the community assistant principal. And we have clinical supports at every school as well, who spend a lot of time trying to dive in here when there's friendship issues, when there is an incident, an allegation of bullying. We have a pretty robust protocol for trying to investigate if bullying is actually happening, and then figuring out what to do. That is something that we've always really cared about, and we've really upped our responsiveness and process around what do we do when that allegation happens to really address it. So it's not an easy part of the job, but it is a very important and hard part of the job that seems to be increasingly hard post-COVID in our middle schools.
Thank you.
And Dan, I would just add, I've been a part of a few of the kind of more serious incidences that have occurred. And I know there's a very strong, robust process of investigation, and the few more serious ones have had to do with something that, you know, was said or made on social media. The schools have done these very good deep dive investigations, and they write up a formal report, goes to Laura, she makes a decision, and in a few cases, the final decision would come up to me on the more serious ones. But I would say the process is very thorough. You know, we have cameras in schools. There have been incidences where, you know, we look at the cameras for more information. But I would say the more majority of the more serious ones have been with something dealing with social media.
Thank you for sharing that, Cassie, and thank you, Patrick, for adding. Are there any other questions?
I was just going to ask Alicia, on the outside assessments, could you just give maybe one example of what an independent auditor found and how we fixed it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So they do a really thorough assessments. It takes several hours to complete for one campus. So this is often a multi-day process to get to all 6 of our campuses. A recent example, we had the auditors come in, they walk inside and outside of the building. And one of the auditors shared that as he was walking in the building, he passed another staff member. He did not have a DC Prep lanyard on. He did not have like a DC Prep visitor sticker. So he was just like a non-identifiable human walking through the building. And the staff member did not approach him, talk to him. They just like walked right by the auditor. And so in the write-up, he shared that that is a huge part, that needs to be a huge part of our visitor protocols, that everyone feels responsible, not just the front desk teams, not just the security guard. Everyone needs to have a sense of responsibility, and that needs to be trained and practiced. That if you see a visitor in the building that doesn't have any demarcation that they're supposed to be there, or any identification that they're a DC Prep staff member, that you stop and you engage them. You know, you can greet them, you ask them if they're lost, if you can help them get to the front desk, whatever, but have some type of engagement, because that is how you prevent, you know, folks from walking around the building that shouldn't be there. And so that was like it was a practice and a protocol that needed to be changed and trained on and reminded of our staff. It's not that the recommendations are always, you know, big money, big ticket investments. It's really practical practices that can yield really great results if adhered to regularly.
Thank you.
No, you're welcome. Well, if there are no more questions, thank you for your time. Let me know if you ever want to visit DC Prep building, do a visitor, like a secret shopper, make sure that we're using our visitor protocols. We'd love to have you. Thank you so much for your time this evening.
Thanks. Thanks, Alicia. All right, I think the next thing is closed session. So get a motion to go into closed session.
So moved.
Second. All right, got a second. Pam.
Aye.
Aye. Terry.
So moved. Yes.
Emily,
Yes.
Tamika,
Aye.
Michaela,
Aye.
Let,
Yes.
Lisa,
Aye.
Hadley,
Aye.
Debbie,
Aye.
Dan,
Yes.
and I'm an I also, so the motion is carried. We will go into closed session. Thanks, everyone.